Hey, good afternoon. This is another Black City Coffee video, and today we're going to talk about something very, very important. If you upgrade only one thing in your coffee arsenal of experiencing better coffee for yourself, it would be this one thing. So, the one thing that you should upgrade immediately if you're going to start taking steps toward experiencing the best coffee that you can give yourself is one, buy good coffee, right? What does good coffee mean? We can get into that later. If you're buying Black City coffee, trust. Second thing that you can do to upgrade your own personal arsenal of coffee tools that you can make sure on your own, quality parameters is a grinder. This is my grinder. It is not top of the line or anything like that, but it definitely gives me a consistent grind across the board year after year. It's probably been a good 3 years, something like that, when I decided to finally understand why the grind was important. It wasn't just good coffee. So part of my mission here in Black City Coffee is not only to just roast good coffee for you guys, but it's to educate you and empower you wherever you are in the world and you're trying to experience the goodness that is coffee. I want you to be informed. I want you to know what your money is being spent on. So how you can control having a very great cup of coffee experience is to control the grind of your coffee. Okay, so this guy right here probably run you a good 115, I think it's going for on Amazon. Sometimes you can get a deal where it's like $100. I got mine for 150, and that was a deal back in the day when knowledge about grinders, I would say, was still very much underground. I think it's still underground now, just because most of my immediate friend circle are not knowledgeable about grinders and grinding their own coffee. They're mostly Keurig drinkers, which is so sad. But I convinced my parents, and that's a pretty hard one in terms of their coffee, because they've been doing coffee for so long. So I feel like if I can convince somebody who's been set in their ways about coffee, over 30 plus years of drinking coffee, then there's hope for you. Why is a grinder important? And why is this one pretty damn good? This one, for example, if we take off the hopper, and the hopper holds the beans, you can see in here, and these are like little rubber, this is like a rubber guide to guide the beans into this grinder. There's two types of grinders like this, and what you'll want to get is a cone shaped burr, which is what I have in here. And in order for you to extract and get everything that your money's worth with that coffee, is for you to bring up and meet it halfway, or whatever the percentage is, and brew it correctly. And part of that is grinding them to a consistent grind. That way, when the water hits the grounds, it's all even. Kind of think of it like cooking. So if you were to take a bunch of like vegetables, let's say carrots, and you cut them up into different random sizes to no fault of your own, and then you try to stir fry them in the pan, some of the smaller pieces will get cooked faster than the larger pieces, right? And over time, you'll maybe burn the smaller pieces, and the larger ones are still not even cooked. So it's when you have an uneven surface of material to cook or to brew, it's gonna be very inconsistent. And so you definitely don't want flavors of something being charred and something being not cooked when you eat it or consume it. So it's the same concept where you're trying to create something that is even and consistent. That way you brew it, it's all even when it's extracted, okay? And so that's why grind is important, why that's the number one thing that you should upgrade besides buying great coffee. You could buy the great coffee just like somebody who's learning golf can buy really expensive golf clubs, but if they don't know how to swing it, it doesn't do them much good. right? If you're gonna go for something that's more like you're looking to invest and you're like, dude, if I'm gonna spend $100, and to me $100 is not a lot anymore. But maybe 4 years ago when I wasn't really as invested as I am emotionally and spiritually with coffee, I was saying, dang, 150 bucks, like that's expensive. But then I overcame that and said, you know what? I deserve the best coffee. So I'm going to invest $150 into my grinder, and it hasn't let me down. So as long as I take care of this grinder, and it's got a steel base and stainless steel conical burrs, and I take care of it every year. I give it a really good cleaning, and every now and again, if I'm grinding a lot of, like, say before when I started drinking coffee, I was drinking a lot of dark roast. There's a lot of oils in that. So if you have a lot of oils in your grinder, you're gonna want to clean that, right? And how you do that, I'll probably make another video on that, and it gets pretty, it's not difficult, but you do have to set aside some time, you know, to do it. What you really want to stay away from, like, say you're like, dude, make like 150 bucks, that's craziness, you know, like $100, don't even tell me, you know. And I'll be like, okay, you know, you can just start wherever you're at, and then if that's your decision to, you know, give yourself the best coffee or experience that for yourself, then just save up for it. Like, money can always be earned. The thing with this is you'll want to stay away from, please, because it'll just end up breaking, or you're just gonna be wasting your money, really, is blade grinders, okay? So the thing with blade grinders, I don't even have one because I don't let that stuff even touch me now. I used to have one too, but a blade grinder, what it does, it'll chop up your beans and literally chop them in such an inconsistent, uneven way, just like my carrot analogy. And when you go to brew it, it's all messed up. It's uneven, it's an uneven extraction. So also, it is said that they spin so fast at a rotation or a velocity or whatever so quickly that it even creates friction, which creates heat, which pre-cooks the beans before you even brew them, which again leads to an uneven extraction or uneven cooking of the beans, so to speak. So for example, if I were to take that into cooking again, it's like heating the steak and then like just barely heating it and then leaving it there for a minute and then going back into heating it, when we all know to eat a proper steak is to sear that guy with hot heat, and then sear the other guy hot heat, and that's how you get an awesome steak. So we don't want to pre-cook the beans or the grounds or the coffee before we even have it, okay? Another thing too, grind exactly how much you're going to brew and consume during the time that you're making coffee, unless you're making coffee for a lot of people, right? So for myself, for example, every time I take a scoop from my coffee canister, and I'm gonna make some right now, so let's just do it, because I'm gonna have coffee in a minute. I'm just serving myself, which means I'm just using 1 scoop or 2 tablespoons or 30 milligrams of grams of coffee. And that's what I'm gonna grind, and that's what I'm gonna brew, and that's what I'm gonna drink. So the more time you put in between like non-consumed coffee, the more like flavor you don't get to be a part of, versus like, I don't know what the thing is, like if you're gonna make cold brew and you're gonna make a concentrate, you're experiencing coffee in a different way than you are, say, pour over or AeroPress, or, you know, just single serve hot coffee, just, you know, pure like that. So I can't really, those are 2 different things, so I can't compare that, like cold brew versus pour over, or just a regular hot cup of coffee. Okay, so yeah, if you can, try to upgrade your grinder. That's the best way to enjoy the best coffee experience at home, and you know you deserve the best coffee. You do. I mean, if you didn't know that, now you know. So now we're going to do our proper coffee break. I'm gonna heat up some water, we're gonna brew some coffee, and that'll be my coffee break. rinsing the paper. Okay. Okay. All right. I always give it a little tap because some beans can be held up in there either by static or they just, you know, kind of get clumped together. But remember that little thing I told you about how a blade grinder can spin so fast it heats up the coffee and kind of like pre-cooks it. So same thing with this guy, right? It's got a setting of 10, but what I've learned somewhere along my coffee journey is that, say you were making a lot of coffee, maybe you filled this thing up to the brim. I would say I wouldn't recommend that because you would be doing the same thing as like preheating the coffee a little bit too early. I would do it like in sections. So I only bring myself to maybe about 4 or 5 on the setting if I'm making coffee for multiple people, and then I would take breaks. So I wouldn't crank this guy to 10 and I wouldn't fill this guy to the brim. I like to operate within a nice like medium capacity of this machine. That way I prolong the life of it as well, and that I don't prematurely cook the beans. Does that make sense? It sounds like a little paranoid and something, but I think it's just good to not push any machine to its max capacity, because I think it's then you're like, yeah, that's its max capacity, but you're kind of like always pushing it to the brim, to the stress, right? Like if a human being, you're like, yeah, I can take it, but if you keep like, yeah, I can take a punch, but if you keep punching me, it's probably gonna hurt me after a while, right? So the same kind of thing. Don't punch your machines to death. Okay. All right, cool. So we got our coffee. You gotta always smell it. And if I look at the grind, hopefully you can see this. It's very soft, it's very fluffy. You got some chaff in there, that like papery stuff that surrounds the coffee. That's okay, it doesn't do anything, any flavor, nothing. It's just a sort of layer that comes with the coffee, you know, sometimes, and sometimes it's left over. And I'm looking at the grind, and it's definitely not gonna be top of the line grinder. There's some grinders out there, thousands of dollars, right? But for in your house, you're just doing the best you can with the budget that you have and the respect and the and the willpower that you have, you know, with your coffee. So this is the best thing that you can do, you know, is just get a really good grinder. And just try to stay away from the blade ones, you know. Okay guys, so that's my #1 tip for this week. Upgrade your grinder. And if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. Alrighty. If you want to get my grinder and I get a little commission if you use my link in the description, you can find it on Amazon. Alright, see you next time. Bye.